Chapter 12. The visitor center was deserted. Chairs were turned over. Signs were on the floor. Branches poked through the windows. It looked like the jungle had taken over. Alan led Lex and Tim into the restaurant. "I need to find the others," he said. "Tim needs a doctor. Will you take care of him for me, Lex?" Lex nodded, her eyes wide. She was terrified. Tim's hair was wild from the shock of electricity. Alan looked at him for a moment. Then he smoothed it down. "Big Tim, the human piece of toast," he said softly. Tim gave a weak laugh. Quickly, before he could change his mind, Alan kissed Tim and Lex on the foreheads. Then he headed across the restaurant. "Be right back," he said, walking out the door. For a moment, Lex was at a loss. What should they do next? "Are you hungry, Timmy?" She went to the food counter and started loading things onto a tray. Suddenly, she froze. "Something's here," she whispered. Through the restaurant window, they could see into the lobby. There was a life-size picture of a raptor, and right next to it was a real one. "Can you run, Tim?" she asked. "I don't think so," he answered faintly. Lex pulled Tim to his feet. Throwing his arm over her shoulder, she helped him into the kitchen. As quietly as she could, she shut the shiny metal door. There was no lock. Then she led Tim down an aisle to the back of the room. They huddled behind a counter, trying to hide. All at once, they saw the raptor's head. It was peering at them through the round window of the kitchen door. Bang! The raptor thumped against the metal. The door didn't budge. The raptor stared at the door handle. It was figuring out how it worked. Slowly, it reached over its clawed hand. Inside the kitchen, Lex and Tim stared. The handle was turning. The door opened. The raptor stood framed in the doorway. Drawing itself up to its full height, it snarled. Then it moved into the room. But it wasn't alone. Right behind it was another raptor. They both paused, sniffing the air. The first raptor went down one aisle. The other raptor chose a different one. Tim and Lex crawled down the third aisle, the center one, in the opposite direction. They were heading for the door, but first they had to get past the raptors, and ordinary kitchen counters were the only things between Lex and Tim and the dinosaurs. Tim and Lex moved toward the door. Just as they passed the raptors, one of the dinosaurs turned and knocked pots and pans off the counter, right on the kids' heads. Somehow, Tim and Lex managed to keep quiet. Lex kept crawling, but Tim was falling behind, and Lex didn't realize it. Exhausted, Tim brushed up against some pots, and they clattered to the ground. Hearing the noise, the raptors stopped. Then they turned and headed for Tim. Click, click. Suddenly, there was another noise. It was coming from the other end of the aisle. The raptors turned again. It was Lex, tapping a spoon on the floor. They began to move toward her. Quickly, Lex slid into a steel cabinet. She tried to pull down the shiny sliding door, but it was stuck, and the raptors were coming closer. Tim, meanwhile, spotted a walk-in freezer. If he could just get inside. Using all his strength, he pulled himself up. Then he limped toward the freezer. But one raptor saw Tim moving and headed his way. Now one raptor was closing in on Lex, the other on Timmy. The raptors pounced at the same time. But instead of striking Lex, the raptor went for her reflection on a shiny cabinet door. Thud! It hit the cabinet hard and fell to the ground. Tim made it to the freezer. He ripped the door open and stumbled inside. The floor was icy. So icy, Tim went sliding across the floor. The raptor was right behind him and skidded too, right past Tim. There was a moment of confusion in the freezer, and Tim saw his chance to escape. He hurried out the door, the raptor at his heels. Slam! Lex flung the door closed just in time. The raptor was trapped inside. Lex looked at the other raptor. It was getting to its feet. She threw her arm around Tim, and together they raced into the hallway. Suddenly, dark shapes loomed in front of them, but they couldn't stop running. Crash! They careened into the figures and fell to the ground. A second later, they were yanked to their feet. It was Alan and Ellie. "Let's go," said Alan.